Right. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining me today in the evening. This is a breaking news episode or bulletin. I normally do this when there's something that has happened that I would like us to handle as soon as possible. So today I want to look at the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. So there's been a massive announcement that I want to talk about, and this is to do with the announced retrenchment of employees. So the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has sent out a statement, and under this statement, they've announced a wide range of changes that are going to take place at the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. And these changes are going to be far reaching, and they're going to affect the whole of the banking sector in Zimbabwe. So if you work at the bank in Zimbabwe, I said this on the first day, you must be very alert to what can happen within the sector, the banking sector. There's going to be massive job losses in the banking sector of Zimbabwe. The banking sector of Zimbabwe is not profitable. I used to work in the banking sector in Zimbabwe. It's a place where many people think there's money, but there's actually very little money because the money is concentrated within a few people. So that is a few customers account for the majority of the depositors. So if one bank gets a big depositor, they hold on to that depositor, and then the rest of the money comes from retail. So the people that walk into the bank and deposit and withdraw cash, that is where the money is actually coming from, where people are chasing the deposits. So without talking much, let me go to what the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe said. They've issued a statement here to employees, and I'm going to, I don't know if I should post this, but tomorrow I'll try to post this statement. And this statement reveals that there's going to be changes to the actual structure of the bank. So Mushayavanhu has written this statement to employees called Building Market Confidence, Trust and Policy Credibility in the Reserve Bank. So as I was saying, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe was actually the problem. All the issues that you see on the market or inside the market are coming from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. And Mushayavanhu is trying to change this issue or this problem in the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe through structural changes in the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. And I want to specifically focus on two things that he says here: banks restructuring and reform. He says, we are also aware that the market has lost confidence and trust in the credibility and impact of the central bank's policies over the years. And this called for a refocused reorientation and change in the way we do things in pursuit of our statutory mandate. So the most important thing I want to mention here is that the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is actually a poor brand. They do not know how to market themselves. Their website was not always updated. They did not produce annual statements, and at times they did not produce weekly and monthly statements, and the market did not know what was going on. So Mushayavanhu is saying here that he's going to make major changes to the Reserve Bank in terms of the actual structure of the bank. And what I would like to see here is the firing of some of the very top people in the bank. I would like to see the executive management of this bank being fired. And as you know that at the top of this bank, there's executive management, then there's a board of directors. So the Reserve Bank board of directors, in my view, should be fired. The whole board, obviously you can't fire Mushayavanhu, who has just arrived. But the rest of the guys who are in the board of directors, and when you look at the board of directors, it's got 9 people. That is, previously there was Mangunja, and I think he's still there. There's Matilda Zumbunu, deputy chairperson. There's Jasmine Tichipika, Innocent Mache. I don't know if these are still the current ones, but according to the website of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, Edwin Manikai, Emma Fundira, Caleb Fundanga, Belinda Muswaka, and Professor Jerry Parwada. These are the people that are in the board, and I believe that this whole board of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe must be fired. And then when you look at the Monetary Policy Committee, it's a given that these guys must go. And in terms of the executive management, there's a lot of people that need to go here. But specifically, anyone who is in bank supervision and anyone who deals with the market, those guys are corrupt. They have been dealing with this market. They've been letting things happen which are not supposed to happen. So let's look at the deputy director here. We have got Innocent Mache, we've got Jessamine Chipika. And when you look at the two, these are the two people that were supposed to be looking at the day-to-day operations of the bank, because the governor is often very busy. And I believe that when you look at deputy governors, that is where the problem is. And these people need to be dismissed. I've got no question about that. They need to move. We have got a big problem at the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, and I've been saying this on a daily basis, I think for the past 2 years, that these guys are a problem. So let's look to what else Mushayavanhu says here. He says that there's going to be a two-phase approach to the restructuring and reorganization of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. And phase one would be to restructure the actual bank. Then phase two, that is to do with checking the operations of the bank, and this is where the retrenchments are going to be. So there's going to be a retrenchment of employees within phase two, and phase two has already started. They've started by looking at everyone who's working at the bank and saying who is where, who is doing what, and who is supposed to go. So as I said, anyone who handles cash, anyone who moves with the market, who talks to the banks, anyone who's got any way of encouraging the black market, that person should be out of the bank, because the actual black market is the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is the black market in Zimbabwe. Then I want to end with what he said here. As governor, I want to reassure all employees and reaffirm that phase two is a normal process of learning the bank's operational framework and should not be deemed to result in job losses or retrenchments. So this guy, if you work at the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, do not believe this. The Reserve Bank is going to retrench a massive number of people. And he says here, I'll be requesting that each division prepare a comprehensive information memorandum to help us in the diagnostic process for phase two. This will allow us, me, your governor, to gain a solid understanding of the institutes, people, systems, procedures, and culture. So the problem with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is there's a lot of deadwood. There's a lot of people at the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe who are not there, who are not supposed to be there. There's a lot of divisions and departments that are not supposed to be there. They've got easy money at the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. So they've been doing a lot of useless stuff, and they're not focused on what the Reserve Bank is supposed to do. So the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe's main mission is to make sure that our money has got value and the Zimbabwe dollar is respected, or the ZiG is respected. And if we're looking this afternoon, you will see that there are economists, solid economists, who are talking, like Professor Gift Mugano. He is a very, very good economist. He was talking today. And you will see what he said is that the ZiG is going to collapse within the next few months. And the reason that he gave for the ZiG collapsing is that the Reserve Bank and the government do not believe in the ZiG. So he's saying they are charging half of the tax in ZiG and half of the tax in US dollars. They're not allowing people to buy fuel in US dollars. They're not allowing people to buy passports and all these things in US dollars. So what Professor Mugano is saying, he's saying that within the next few months, there will be a moment where it's going to tip over. So there will initially be almost a sense of normalcy. But after a while, the ZiG is going to suddenly collapse because of lack of confidence. And what he suggests is that the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe should actually be brave and only allow transactions in ZiG, in government, and also for day-to-day transactions in Zimbabwe. And then also to put a formal retail market that I've been talking about, that there should be a formal retail market where people can buy and sell ZiG. But you heard the governor this afternoon. He said 50% of the tax is going to be paid in ZiG and 50% in US dollars. This means they do not have confidence in the ZiG. And this thing is going to collapse. The ZiG is going to collapse very, very badly. If you've got money in ZiG, do not put it there. So do not listen to Mushayavanhu. He is lying when he says that the ZiG is not going to collapse, and he knows it. So all I can say to you is, I'm going to have the last laugh here. Mushayavanhu does not know the ZANU-PF guys. They are going to make sure that that ZiG collapses to the level that you've never seen. You see, this past ZWL that collapsed, The ZiG is going to go to 1 billion, according to these ZANU-PF guys who are there. These guys, they only know one thing, which is to destroy value. And they will never do anything that will normalize the economy in Zimbabwe. If things were to be normalized in Zimbabwe, things would work. If you had money coming out of the ATM, you've got people walking into the bureau de change, if you've got banks stopping the black market, and you've got people at the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe who have got integrity, then what you're going to see is you're going to see things normalize in Zimbabwe. But this collapse in Zimbabwe is by design. So the employees are going to suffer. The RBZ employees, they are going to get it, and it's going to start happening very, very soon. I will try to upload this statement. In fact, I think I should do it. I'm going to upload it to gambaku.com so that you can see it. So if you check after about 20 minutes, you'll see the phases, the 2 phases, where the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe governor, John Mushayavanhu, said he's going to make changes to the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Phase 1 is to restructure the corporate and diagnose what's wrong with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Phase 2 is to look at the people and processes, and this is where the retrenchments are going to happen. People are going to lose their jobs. And in terms of the wider banking sector, there's going to be massive job losses. I've said this in the beginning. If you work in the banks are not profitable. The only way they were making money was through the black market. So all the banks that you know in Zimbabwe, they were only standing because of money laundering, because of black market. And now it's going to happen. You're going to start seeing a lot of job losses in the banks in Zimbabwe, starting with the weak banks. So you see all those little weak banks that were just on the brink, those are going to fall over. All those banks that I've shown you that are not making money, that Mushayavanhu is keeping open, like Ututunana Empower Bank, Women's Bank, all those little banks, they just need to merge them because they're not banks. They're going to collapse very, very soon. And the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is going to show you the example of what is going to happen in the banking sector. Let's watch this very, very closely. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is making the first move, and already they've started by retrenching. So which means they've realized that things have been happening in the bank which are wrong, but I want to see them acting at the top. Executive management and the board of directors of the RBZ. That is where Mnangagwa needs to move. And if you don't see Mnangagwa moving there, nothing's going to happen. But watch Professor Mugano's interview. Very, very interesting interview on Slide TV. And he explained what is going to go wrong. The ZiG is going to collapse because the government of Zimbabwe does not have confidence in it. So if you go to Sly Media, the interview is got very little views right now. It was this afternoon. It's written, poor planning is the reason for cashless society. So if you go to Sly Media TV, you'll see that interview there. One of the smartest men that I've ever seen, Professor Gift Mugano. Go and watch over there. ZiG just about to collapse. And at the same time, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe on the verge of retrenching a bunch of employees. A lot of employees that are doing nothing, just rotating from one floor to the other and going to the balcony. That's what they do. And walking out into that street, in front of the bank. Like the Blaue guys, the ones who print coins. What do they do exactly right now? Like what have they been doing for the past 5 years? Come to think of it. So the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has got a bunch of divisions. What do those divisions do? Do you ever ask yourself those questions? So this is how everything is going to come together. Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is on the verge of another big announcement, another big round of changes inside the bank, which I've been encouraging. But I see whether I'll see if Mushayavanhu manages to do this properly, because the ZiG itself is going to collapse. They failed to use it as an exclusive currency. Today, this afternoon, he has just confirmed that they will never be using the ZiG alone. The ZiG will be a secondary currency once again. So I want to end it here because I'll be back very, very soon. Within the next 3 hours, we'll be having our morning show. But thank you very much, everyone, for watching. We've got a lot of interesting news already that has come up, and we'll be talking about it in the morning. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching, and a good night to you.